Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today we are starting the top 50 board games of all time list, the 2022 edition. These are going to be games numbers 50 through 41, and we're looking strictly at the solo mode, which means that the ratings are going to be a little bit different here and there because some of them do include the actual multiplayer as well as the solo mode, but I think that the solo modes for some will shine more than others. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow, and for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. All that being said, let's get started talking about some incredible solo board games. My number 50 goes to Aeon's End, where you play as breach mages who are harnessing this mystical energy, casting spells, and repelling these terrible nemesis creatures from attacking your city of Gravehold. In the solo game, you're going to play as many breach mages as you like. Generally, I play two-handed, so I control two of them, and then you're going to be deck building using the static market, adding cards into your hand, into your discard pile, and then using those things. And every time you put them in your discard, they stay where they are. So there's no shuffling in this game. Whenever you run out of cards in your deck, you'll flip your discard pile over and then continue drawing. It's a really great system that allows you to set up some cool combos. My favorite thing about this game has to be the nemesises themselves. The boss variety is wonderful, as every time you play, you're going to have a new unique set of cards that are going to come out for them, as well as additional tokens or decks of cards that will match that character. They've even gone really crazy in the more recent editions, adding new boards and adding new ways to mess up or change the different other facets of the game, and I really like the creativity that's coming through there. So protect Gravehold with your breach mages in Aeon's End. My number 49 goes to The Reckoners, where you play as the protagonists of the Steelheart series by Brandon Sanderson. You are non-superpowered individuals who are trying to take down some of the worst supervillains of all time, who have been corrupt with the amount of power that they've received. Gameplay itself has you doing something similar to Aeon's End, where you are going to be pairing up with multiple characters, playing two-hand or three-hand, however many you want to play. With those characters, you are going to be rolling sets of dice in a Yahtzee style, and then using those dice as symbols to move your characters around and interact with the board. You can attack different characters, research their weaknesses, and then eventually take them out. Now, my favorite part about this game is actually the item cards. Some of the dice faces that you'll be rolling have this money symbol on them, and every time you use that money symbol, you're accruing this currency that you get to use at the end of the round. It's a great trade-off because you're not using it to advance your state on the board immediately, but you're also using it to improve your chances in getting free actions for later rounds. So it's a great investment and a great return. And you can also earn money through taking out these different super villains. So I like that there's some great ways to say, ooh, let's prioritize taking out this character because it'll give us some extra cash and let us get some new items. And all the items you can pretty much use every round. You have some exhaust abilities and some always active abilities, and I really like the way this works. So you've got some cool choices of the items that's going to customize and change your different game settings. So I really like the cooperation here. The theme is awesome. That is my number 49 of The Reckoners. My number 48 goes to Cartographers, where you play as the Queen's Royal Map Makers. You'll do your best to try to draw in all these different shapes in order to satisfy a variety of scoring opportunities. Now, the solo mode doesn't have a lot of big changes in the core game. You're going to be flipping these cards here on the left every single round. You'll flip over till you get a certain number of time, and every time a shape comes up, you draw it somewhere on your personal map to satisfy the scoring criteria. You'll check the scoring at the end and then try to make the most points. You're going to try to compare yourself to this solo bot who has a point amount that it's going to be generating automatically, but there's no actual scorekeeping or anything like that you have to do. And my favorite part about this game is actually the scoring itself. It reminds me a lot of games like Isle of Skye, where you have certain scoring criteria and it's going to show up in multiple times during the game. So A and B will be scored first, then B and C get scored in the next round, then C and D get scored in the third round, and in the last round it's back to D and A. So you have to prioritize which of these scoring opportunities that you're going to make sure you want to do, because the value of the points that you're getting and the return you're getting back is going to change. So do you go for those points now or for those points later based on the shapes that you're getting? You've got a lot of things to think about right from the get-go, but I love that these are going to be interchangeable, the scoring values. It's going to make for a very unique game every time you play. So that's number 48, Cartographers, wonderful map-making roll and write game. My number 47 goes to It's a Wonderful World, a game of card drafting and resource production, where you're going to be using these cards to either put them in front of you as projects and then hopefully build them so that they produce the resources at the end of every round. Or you can discard them for one-off resources to help you fill out those missing spots on the current projects. There are a couple of sensible changes to the solo game. Instead of drafting cards between players and potentially getting them back, you're only going to be drafting a small amount and taking a single card at a time. This can be a little stressful because you won't ever see those other cards, but it makes that decision that much more crucial. You also have this cool way where you can give up some of your other earned cards to dig deeper for specific cards. So do you go for looking for one specific card, or do you keep your large amount from before? It reminds me a lot of something like Race for the Galaxy. And then the last big change is whenever you are scoring these extra points for producing the most of a resource, you just have a threshold that you have to make. So very small changes, but they make sense in the game itself. But my favorite part about the game is the resource production. At the end of every round, you're going to go in a specific order and produce resources. So first off, we start with gray, then we go to black, then to green. After you produce those resources, you are allowed to immediately allocate them onto the cards in front of you. And I love this about this game. For example, I produce a bunch of grays here, and I can put them right here on this black card. And if it's done, it's going to start producing during the next phase. I love this because you can set up a chain of events and eventually produce and complete a bunch of cards in the same round. Very satisfying feeling, and I love the way that this system flows. That is my number 47. It's a Wonderful World. My number 46 goes to the Isle of Cats, another drafting game that features polyominoes, as you are rescuing these cats from this island that's about to be destroyed and doing your best to fit as many as possible onto your boat while satisfying a variety of scoring conditions. Now, the solo mode of this game has you actually playing off against your sister. You're building your scoring conditions on the same boat. So in addition to all of the lessons, which are the scoring criteria for yourself, you also have to counteract the lessons that are present for your sister. So do what you can in order to reduce the amount of points that she's getting while getting as many points as possible for yourself. This is a great twist and a great puzzle because now you have a lot of scoring criteria that's going to be contradictory and you're going to have to try to make it work. I really love the progression of this system. My favorite part about this game are the lesson cards themselves. Whenever you're drafting cards at the start of each round, you have to make the choice then and there whether you're going to take these green cards that actually provide baskets that let you take and rescue cats, or you're going to take treasures, or these instant effects or bonuses. There's a lot of options when it comes to the cards, but the biggest option comes in the forms of lessons. You're not getting any bonus right away, no extra fish, no extra cats, nothing to actually help progress your game state, but you're giving yourself scoring criteria. I love this choice of, ooh, how much can I push myself with this limited time that I have to score these extra points? It's such a great feeling. I love this balance of collecting as many lessons as possible while still being efficient with your placement of polyominoes. The last game that I played of this, I actually had about 15 of these blue lesson cards, and it was just ridiculous the amount of extra points that I got from them, and I was able to juggle all of these different conditions. I love that you have that option to push yourself. But wonderful solo mode. This is the Isle of Cats, my number 46. My number 45 goes to This War of Mine. This is a game of survival as you play as citizens who are living in a war-torn city. It's up to you to do the best you can with the people that you've met in the surrounding area to hold up in this home that you've made your fortress and go out and forage for different items and things you may need to help you survive and survive some sort of objective system that's going to be coming out throughout the game. Now, the game has you playing in the sole capacity as all of the characters. You get to use them to activate different abilities through a worker placement style. You'll put them into a spot in your home, trigger an effect, and then do that until everybody is fatigued and out of actions. After that happens, you'll keep some at the home to protect it, and then send some out for exploration. And both of those things will be happening simultaneously, and hopefully both teams are able to make it back in one piece. After that happens, you resolve any weather effects and other events that may happen. There's a lot of different things that can happen throughout this process. This game is extremely thematic, and my favorite thing has to be the exploration and how it's managed. When you explore, you're going to choose a location that's outside of your home, and based on how far away it is, that's how many of the cards that you're going to get for your exploration deck. Every time you explore, you draw a card, and it'll give you a choice whether you can press your luck and move forward, or you can burn cards from your exploration deck to do things a little bit more safely. And I really like this system because you always have this choice. You're going to be making noise, which can attract different people from the outside, and this can always be a good or a bad thing, but more often than not, it's something that you're going to want to avoid. This War of Mine does an excellent job with emergent storytelling, as your narrative is constructed through the events of these different characters, and you get to see how this narrative is woven in front of you in a very realistic sense. I really like This War of Mine, and I think it does a great job in this tone and its deliverance and this system itself. So that's my number 45. My number 44 goes to Burgle Bros 2, The Casino Capers, where you play as a team of crooks who have broken into a casino, and it's up to you to maneuver around it to get the codes for the safe, crack into the safe, and see what's inside, and get out. The solo mode of this game is just the cooperative version, but you play two-handed. You'll take 3 actions with one character, resolve a guard that moves around, and then resolve your 3 actions with the other character, and do it back and forth until you've broken into that safe. And my favorite part about this game is when you actually get into the safe and reveal the finale card. When you break into it, you're actually going after something. For example, if you are trying to steal a car, what's going to happen when you open up a car from the safe? I don't want to give any details here because that's going to be big spoilers, but I think that I really enjoy how it adds some new rules and new twists to the rules by implementing this system. I really enjoy the different tiles on the board. I love the heat system. I love the different alarm system, and I think that the security guard is on point with the way that it tracks the different characters on the board. Burgle Bros 2 is my favorite implementation of this system, and I think the finales especially make this one that you're going to want to keep on coming back to. So that's my number 44, Burgle Bros 2, The Casino Capers. My number 43 goes to Unbroken, where you play as a survivor in this land of darkness, and you'll be gathering all of these materials and weapons and facing down a gauntlet of creatures. After you defeat the 4 creatures, you win the game. The game itself has you playing through 2 different phases. You have an exploration phase and then the combat phase. In the exploration, you'll be drawing these cards, and these cards will give you options to spend time in order to get resources. And this is my favorite part about this game, is the resource management. You always have an option to forego the card and just gain that much stamina instead, which is kind of like your health and how much you can actually use to attack with your different weapons, or you can gain straight up equipment. Food is used to recover your health at the end of the round. Treasure is just straight victory points for the end of the game, so you have to juggle that with how well you think you're going to be able to do, and if you actually can take the treasure, or if you need to take something else. So some great decisions there. And you're always able to take multiple cards when you do this exploration, so you have some great choices when it comes to which of these resources you're going to take over others. After you finish the exploration, you'll move on to the combat, which is a back and forth style where you roll a die to resolve the enemy's attacks, and it's really simple and really well done. I like the way that you have some mitigation with understanding what creatures may come out by taking the scout option during the exploration phase, but you also have ways that certain weapons may be more efficient than others. So I really like that your resources are also used to create and craft weapons, which will give you better advantages based on the different creatures you're fighting. Unbroken has a lot of excellent choices, and its resource production and its theming and overall game arc is one that makes me excited to play it again and again. So it's my number 43, Unbroken. My number 42 goes to Kingdom Rush Rift in Time, another twist on the polyomino genre, where you are going to be playing a tower defense game. You have these hordes of creatures that are going to be coming down on these large trays, and on your turn, you're going to do your best to assign and place these towers onto the board. These towers will shoot out polyominoes and cover up the different enemies. If you cover up all the enemies, excellent, you've defeated them, they'll get removed from the board, and you'll collect gems, which will allow you to buy more towers. In addition to the towers, you have these player-controlled characters, and if you're playing the solo mode, you can choose how many of these characters you want to control. I personally like playing two-handed with this one, controlling 2 different heroes, and the heroes are just super fun and interesting. Every round, you'll get to summon them onto the board, and then they'll cover up spaces with their character themselves. And they also have really cool abilities that you get to fire. Like Malik here has some Hammer Fury abilities that he can use, where he's shooting out these gigantic pieces and covering lots of areas at the same time, where you may have some characters who do magic damage or range damage, or characters who can even summon other pieces onto the board. There's a lot of great choices when it comes to the heroes, and all of the expansions just add even more options and abilities. I love the progression of this game. I love the campaign system, so you can scale the difficulty, and there are even boss battles that will make the game really exciting with the way that they're unpredictable and terrifying. Some great choices in Kingdom Rush Rift in Time, and the heroes in this game make me want to come back and combine their different special abilities. My number 42, Kingdom Rush Rift in Time. My number 41, the last game on this portion of the list, goes to Ascension Tactics, the miniatures deck building game. This is a standard deck building style that's brought to you from the world of Ascension, where you have cards that give you buy power, they'll let you add new cards to the deck, but instead of having an attack symbol, you're going to be using this second resource to actually activate champions, which correlate to different miniatures on the board and allow you to move them around, attack with them, and interact with the board itself. The solo mode of this game has you taking the enemy's champions and assigning a control marker to each. You'll take a matching control marker and place it onto the board, and this is what those different champions are going after. When it's the enemy's turn, they'll draw cards from the top of the scheme deck, 2 each turn, and then they'll move the character based on these rules. can I kill something? If the answer is no, you move towards the objective. Such a simple system, but it's done so well and offers some actual pressure because the objectives lean into the presence of the champions alone. And I really like this system. In addition to racing for honor, the scheme deck is actually going to evolve as the game plays. So based on the number of cards that they've actually already played, the schemes will increase in their power and potential, just like a human player would, and it does a great job implementing that. My favorite part about this game, though, is actually a tried and true deck building mechanism that we've seen a lot in different iterations of deck building, and that is ambush effects. Ambush effects are on these cards in the market that are available for people to purchase, and whenever you buy a card with an ambush effect, it goes in your discard pile like normal, but the ambush effect will trigger and do an instant effect right now. So it's a one-time thing, but I love how this works with the miniatures on the board because this could be very important if you're maybe missing a couple of stats or you need something for accurate positioning or to push your plays forward. I love that there's a bit more tension here and a bit more flexibility with what the different characters can do and how they can utilize these ambush effects, which also leads into the creativity of the cards and increases the amount of choices for the players. It's just really satisfying to me that you can be proactive with the cards you're buying, but also maybe bank them and save them for a larger card that won't have an effect till later. So I love the addition of these ambush cards in here, and I think they're used to great effect for making a very interesting game state at all times. So that is Ascension Tactics, the miniatures deck building game, a wonderful system with a cooperative and solo campaign that you can also jump into that has progression as you're going to be adding new champions to your roster and having more and more difficult challenges that you need to face. So that's my number 41, Ascension Tactics, the miniatures deck building game. And that's the list. Those are my top 50 solo board games of all time, numbers 50 through 41. If you have any questions about any of these games that I talked about here, please let me know down in the comments below. Do you agree with any of my picks? Do you disagree with them? Do you think some should have been higher? Do you think some should have been off the list? I'd love to know what you think about these games and if you enjoy their solo modes as well. Thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.